Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, be sure to drop your thoughts, feelings, and lessons in the comments below. Like the video and subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Let's get into it. The cruelest thing my wife ever did was stand in our Atlanta kitchen while a sheriff's deputy taped a court order to our front door, then look straight through me and say, "Pack what you can carry. You're not living here anymore." Simone didn't raise her voice. She didn't flinch. Her face was calm, almost bored, like she was canceling a subscription. Her sister Tasha leaned in the doorway, filming on her phone, smiling, while Simone added, "And don't touch anything that's mine. I deserve everything you own." Here's how it happened. My name is Marcus Reed, black man, mid-30s, raised between Baltimore and Prince George's County, now in Georgia because my career follows asphalt, concrete, and city deadlines. I manage projects for a municipal contractor, storm drains, sidewalk ramps, water lines, the kind of work nobody praises until it fails. I wasn't flashy. I liked quiet wins, a clean inspection, a crew paid on time, a schedule that didn't collapse. I believed consistency was love. I believed if you were steady, life would eventually reward you with peace. Simone Brooks was the kind of woman who made people behave better just by walking into a room. Beautiful, sharp, always put together. She worked HR for a logistics company near College Park and carried herself like she was always being evaluated and always winning. When we met, she said she liked that I was calm, that I didn't show off, that I didn't need applause. We built our marriage on routines. Grocery runs, meal prep, little jokes in the car, a starter home in East Point with paint that still smelled new. That house was my pride and my fear at the same time. My father died when I was 27. Before he passed, he sat me down and said, "Build in a way nobody can snatch." He wasn't bitter. He was practical. He'd seen men lose everything in divorces and lawsuits and family betrayals. He helped me set up a basic trust, nothing fancy, just a structure that kept the roof stable if life went sideways. When Simone signed closing papers, she teased me. "Look at you, Mr. Fine Print." I laughed like it was cute. I didn't know it was a warning. The prenup came later when my side hustle started to grow. On weekends, I rented out equipment, plate compactors, trenchers, generators, to small crews when the city got tight and deadlines got ugly. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid. The prenup wasn't about punishing Simone. It was about protecting what existed before the marriage and what my father's life insurance helped me start. Simone rolled her eyes when I explained it. She signed while eating takeout, barely reading. "You think I'm here for your little tools?" she said. Then she kissed me and went back to scrolling. For years, we were fine. Not perfect. Fine. We argued about small things, laundry, my long hours, money management. Simone would accuse me of loving my job more than her. I'd remind her my job paid for the life she liked. She'd smirk and say, "Don't act like I don't bring anything." I never said she didn't, but I started noticing how she kept score, how love began to sound like a ledger when she was tired. The shift didn't happen all at once. It happens like a thermostat changing 2 degrees every week until you wake up freezing. Simone started caring about things she used to laugh at: status, brands, who drove what, who vacationed where. She replaced simple studs with diamonds. She began talking about power couples, like marriage was a brand partnership. When I asked what was going on, she said I was stuck in survival mode, and she wanted more than just paying bills. She wanted a life that looked expensive, even when nobody was watching. That's when her sister Tasha started popping up more. Tasha was loud, always narrating everything like life was content, always filming, always talking about what a man should do, always bragging about people she knew. Tasha didn't have stability, but she had opinions like they were assets. She'd sit at our island with wine and tell Simone stories about men who handled women, men who provided without being asked, men who didn't need a woman to spell out what she deserved. Then she'd look at me and grin. "Marcus seems sweet," she'd say, like sweet was an insult. Simone started repeating Tasha's words in softer packaging. "My sister's just protective," she'd say, but her eyes would brighten when Tasha praised her. I'd come home from work and hear them whispering like I was a problem they were fixing. When I tried to join, Tasha would stop mid-sentence and ask if I could give them girl time. Simone wouldn't defend me. She'd shrug like I was interrupting something important. Around that time, my old friend Reggie Johnson resurfaced. Reggie and I went back to community college, ramen nights, splitting gas money, hustling part-time jobs. He was funny, charming, always moving. He disappeared after a bad breakup and came back 2 years later like nothing happened. One Saturday, he showed up on my job site with a fresh fade and a truck I knew he couldn't afford. "I'm back," he said, clapping my shoulder. "Let's catch up." I was glad. I didn't see the angle. Reggie started coming around the house. At first it felt normal. Old jokes, games on TV, him teasing Simone about being bougie. Simone laughed too hard at his comments, like she was thirsty for someone else's attention. Reggie noticed and leaned into it. He'd bring expensive bottles, talk about investments, drop names like confetti. Simone listened with her chin lifted, like she was tasting a different life. When I mentioned my equipment rentals, Reggie's eyebrows rose. "That's real money," he said. "You got to scale that." 2 weeks later, Simone demanded the logins. Not asked, demanded. She wanted access to my business account, invoicing software, and client list. "If we're married, it's our money," she said. I told her I didn't mind transparency, but the business side had contracts, liability, payroll. I offered her read-only access, not control. Simone's face hardened. "So you don't trust me," she said. I told her it wasn't about trust. She replied, "Everything is about trust," like she was reading a script. After that, the house felt like a stage where I didn't know my lines. Simone's affection became selective. Some days she was warm, asking about my day, leaning into me like she missed me. Other days, she looked at me like she regretted my existence. She started stepping out with Tasha Moore, Buckhead dinners, Midtown brunch, rooftop bars. When I asked why she was staying out so late, she said I was controlling. "I'm not your employee," she snapped. The irony of an HR woman weaponizing that line wasn't lost on me. The first hard proof came from something stupid, our Wi-Fi app. I was restarting the router and saw 2 new devices connected, an iPad named Tasha's iPad, and a phone labeled Victor L. I asked Simone who Victor was. She didn't blink. "A coworker," she said. I asked why his phone was in our house near midnight. She shrugged. "Must have been when Tasha was here." I checked the logs. Victor's phone had connected 3 different nights. Simone's expression stayed calm. "Are you done playing detective?" she asked. I told myself I was paranoid because that's what you do when you don't want to admit you're losing your life. But paranoia doesn't come from nothing. It came from how Simone guarded her phone, how she stopped saying we unless money was involved, how she started calling the house my house when she was mad. Once in front of Tasha, she said, "Marcus is lucky I picked him." Tasha laughed. I laughed too, because I didn't want to look weak. That laugh tasted like pennies. The next twist hit me at work. My supervisor called me into a trailer and said HR received a complaint. Misuse of company time, unethical vendor relationships, possible kickbacks. I stared at him like he was speaking another language. I'd never been written up. He said the complaint was detailed, project codes, vendor names, dates. It accused me of using city jobs to push rentals to my own business and splitting profits with subcontractors. It was false, but it was specific enough to scare people. That afternoon, my badge stopped working. They didn't fire me, suspended me, pending investigation. I drove home with my stomach hollow. Simone was on the couch in a silk robe like she'd been waiting. I told her what happened. She didn't look surprised. "That's what happens when you think you can do everything alone," she said. When I asked what she meant, she stood, walked past me, and said, "Maybe you should have listened when I told you to stop hiding money." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat at our dining table with a notebook and wrote down every vendor, every rental, every job number. I knew my records were clean, but I also knew what a rumor could do to a black man in corporate systems. How fast they'll smile while they push you out. Around 2 a.m., Simone walked in, poured water, and without looking at me said, "If you lose your job, don't expect me to go down with you." Then she went back to bed like she'd reminded me about taking the trash out. I called Reggie the next morning. Straight to voicemail. I called again. No answer. I texted, "Need to talk. ASAP." He replied 10 minutes later, at work. Later. Reggie didn't have set hours. I drove to his place anyway. He wasn't home. A neighbor said he moved out. No forwarding. The silence felt planned, like he stepped out of my life while leaving fingerprints on everything. The second proof came from my credit monitoring app. A hard inquiry at a bank I'd never used, and a new line of credit opened in my name. I called the bank, and they confirmed it was submitted online with my social security number and birthday. The email used wasn't mine. They wouldn't give me the IP location over the phone, but they confirmed it was within Atlanta Metro. I hung up and stared at Simone's laptop sitting open on the counter like it owned the place. When I confronted Simone about the credit line, she didn't deny it. She smiled like I'd finally caught up. "So you can open secret accounts and I can't?" she asked. I told her I didn't open secret accounts. I had business accounts she knew about. She tilted her head. "Business, marriage, same thing," she said. "Your money is my money. Your credit is our credit." I told her what she did was a fraud. She shrugged. "Then call the police," she said, eyes bright. "Let's see how that goes for you." I didn't call the police. Not because I was scared, but because I knew how quickly a police report can be flipped in a divorce war. Simone wanted me reactive and loud. She wanted a story where she was the victim. I could see it in the way she watched me, like she was waiting for a performance. So I swallowed my rage. I saved screenshots, wrote down dates, and started treating my life like evidence. That night, I slept in my truck in the driveway because the bed felt like a trap. The next morning, my key didn't work. Simone changed the locks while I was outside. I knocked. She opened the door with a crack, chain still on, and said, "You can't just come in." I asked what she was doing. "Protecting myself," she said. Then she held up her phone and showed me a draft email addressed to my boss. Subject line, "Safety concern." I could see my name in the body. Simone's voice stayed sweet. "Try me, Marcus," she whispered. "I will burn everything." I went to a lawyer that afternoon. Her name was Angela Price, a black woman with calm eyes and a desk that didn't have clutter, just control. I told her everything. The Wi-Fi device, the credit line, the complaint at work, the lock change. I handed over the trust paperwork and the prenup. Angela read the prenup clause Simone mocked, the one about misrepresentation and fee shifting. Angela tapped the page once. "If she's making these moves," she said, "she's walking straight into the part she didn't bother to read." Angela warned me about temporary orders. If she files first and frames the story, the court can lock you out before you even breathe, she said. I told her Simone had changed the locks already. Angela didn't waste emotion. "Then we move fast," she said. "No emotional texts. No calls. Every message is evidence. Write like you're writing for a judge." Simone filed 2 days later. No conversation. No counseling suggestion. She filed. The petition was thick with language that made my stomach turn. Coercive control, financial concealment, unsafe environment. She requested exclusive use of the marital home, temporary spousal support, and an emergency order freezing my accounts. She claimed my equipment business was created during the marriage and that I was diverting marital funds. The way she described me didn't sound like my wife writing about her husband. It sounded like a stranger building a case file. The hearing for the temporary protective order happened without me. That's the part people don't understand. How you can lose your home on a Tuesday because you didn't know you were in court. Simone told the judge I was volatile and unpredictable. No police report. No hospital. Just words dressed like facts. Judges see disasters and choose caution. The judge issued a temporary order anyway. And on Thursday morning, the sheriff came to my door. That's when Simone did it. Stood in our kitchen and watched me pack like I was a tenant who missed rent. She wouldn't let me take my tools. Wouldn't let me take my personal laptop. She told the deputy those items were contested assets. The deputy looked uncomfortable but followed procedure. Tasha filmed and whispered loud enough for me to hear. "Look at him. He thought he was the man of the house." Simone didn't tell her to stop. Simone smiled like she was finally winning something she'd been plotting for months. I left with a duffel bag, a trash bag of clothes, and the suit I wore to my dad's funeral because it was hanging by the door and I didn't want her hands on it. I drove to a motel 6 off I-285, paid for a week, and sat on the bed staring at carpet that smelled like old smoke and bleach. I couldn't eat. My hands shook every time my phone buzzed because every vibration felt like another piece of my life collapsing. The protective order meant I couldn't go home, couldn't step on my driveway, couldn't call Simone, couldn't ask for my things. It also meant she could control the narrative while I was gagged by law. Simone still texted anyway. She knew the rules. She didn't care. "I'm taking everything," she wrote. "Sign and make it easy. I deserve it." I forwarded every message to Angela. Angela replied one line, "Good. Let her keep talking." I tried to keep afloat by leaning on my equipment rentals, but Simone knew that too. One morning I logged into my business bank account and saw it nearly empty. Transfers had been made to an account I didn't recognize. Small amounts at first, then a large sweep. The bank told me the transfers were authorized by a device registered to the account. I asked what email was on file. Simone's. She had added herself to the recovery options the night I fell asleep on the couch months earlier. She did it quietly, like a thief who smiles at you while picking your pocket. Angela filed an emergency motion to stop further transfers, but the damage had already started. My biggest client, a paving crew out of Marietta, called and said my invoice portal changed and the payment instructions were different. They asked if I switched banks. My throat went tight. I told them no. They forwarded me the email. It came from a Gmail address using my business name, but with one extra letter. Someone was impersonating me. Someone was steering money away from my account. The impersonation wasn't random. It matched my habits, my invoice numbers, my sign-offs, even slang I used in subject lines. Angela recommended a private investigator. Calvin Hines, retired fraud examiner, black man with a gentle voice and eyes that didn't miss details. He asked for my communications and then asked one question: "Who knows your routines?" Calvin traced the fake email registration to a phone number tied to a prepaid plan purchased at a Walmart in College Park. Angela prepared subpoenas. The security footage showed Tasha buying the phone, hair wrapped, sunglasses on inside like consequences didn't apply to her. She paid cash. She glanced at the camera like she didn't believe cameras mattered. That detail made my skin crawl because it wasn't just betrayal. It was confidence in wrongdoing. Simone responded to the filings with rage disguised as righteousness. She accused me of stalking. She accused me of trying to control her. She didn't deny the phone. My sister was helping me protect myself, she claimed. Protect herself from what? From accountability? Simone's filings grew nastier. She demanded my retirement because she supported my career. She demanded half my equipment because she helped build the business. She demanded the house outright. She kept using the word deserve, like entitlement was a legal argument. The deeper hurt came from Aaliyah, Simone's daughter from before we met. I'd raised her since she was 9. I taught her to drive in an empty lot near Greenbrier Mall. I sat through band concerts. I helped with college applications. When Simone kicked me out, I assumed Aaliyah would at least ask what happened. Instead, she blocked me. When I reached her through a new number, she texted one sentence: "Stop harassing my mom." Harassing. Like love was now a crime. Simone used Aaliyah like a shield. In court documents, she wrote Aaliyah feared me. That cracked something in my chest I didn't know could crack. I'd never hit Simone. Never throw a glass. The worst I'd done was go quiet when I was hurt. But Simone knew fear was a weapon the system respected. She knew the right words could make me dangerous on paper. Aaliyah didn't show remorse either. She didn't ask. She chose the version where I was disposable. The night before my first in-person hearing, I sat in my motel room and cried so hard my ribs hurt. I wasn't crying because I missed Simone. I was crying because I couldn't understand how someone could watch you bleed and call it justice. I thought about my father's warning: build in a way nobody can snatch. I realized he wasn't just talking about money. He was talking about identity, dignity, and sleep. The things people steal from you while pretending it's their right. The hearing was in Fulton County. The courtroom smelled like cold air and old wood. Simone walked in wearing a cream blazer and calm face like she was presenting a quarterly report. Tasha sat behind her whispering and smirking. Simone didn't look at me until she did briefly, like she was checking that I still existed and was still small. Her lawyer asked for continued exclusive use of the home and for me to pay the mortgage while being barred from living there. Angela stood and said, "No," like she was putting a hand up to stop traffic. Angela laid out facts: the lock change, the credit line, the unauthorized transfers, the impersonation. She attached screenshots, bank letters, device logs. She didn't dramatize. She stacked the truth like bricks. The judge's face changed, not anger but suspicion. When the judge asked Simone why she texted me despite the protective order, Simone answered coldly, "I needed him to understand his responsibilities." She said it like she was training a dog. The judge didn't dissolve the order yet, but he narrowed it. He allowed me supervised access to retrieve personal items with a deputy. He ordered Simone to stop contact and stop moving money. Simone's face stayed neutral, but her jaw tightened like she was chewing glass. Outside the courthouse, Tasha hissed as I passed. "You think you won? We're taking you for everything." Simone didn't correct her. Simone stared at me and said, "This isn't over," like she was promising me weather. The deputy escort back to the house felt like returning to a grave. Simone stood on the porch with her arms crossed. Inside, my things were boxed, but not carefully. Clothes balled up like trash. Books dumped into bins with a broken lamp. My father's framed photo is face down on the floor. Simone watched me pick it up and didn't blink. Aaliyah walked past me, eyes blank, and said, "Don't touch my stuff," like I was an intruder in the home I paid for. In the garage, I saw my tools arranged like a display, but several were missing: generator, laser-level compactors. I asked the deputy if I could take them. Simone said, "Those are marital assets." The deputy looked at the order and said we'd need a directive. Simone smiled. "See," she said, "he can't just take what's mine." Mine again. Those tools weren't toys. They were my backup plan. She knew exactly what she was stealing. When I left, I noticed the Ring camera bracket above the door, but the camera was gone. Screws exposed like teeth. Simone removed it to erase what it might have recorded. She didn't understand that my system also backed up motion logs to the cloud through an account she never knew existed. I still had access through a secondary email my dad insisted on. The logs showed late-night entries, someone coming and going after midnight while I was barred from my own property. Calvin compared the motion timestamps with neighborhood gate camera data Angela subpoenaed. A black Range Rover showed up repeatedly, always late, always leaving before dawn. The registered owner was Victor Langston, an investment consultant with a history of civil judgments, unpaid debts, breach of contract claims, the kind of paper trail that follows people who look rich but live off other people. Simone brought a predator into my home and thought the predator was her upgrade. Angela told me not to make Victor the center. "Affairs hurt," she said, "but fraud wins." Simone's arrogance was that humiliation would break me. She didn't realize heartbreak is survivable. Losing my livelihood wasn't. So I focused on money. Calvin dug into my records and found duplicated invoice numbers. 2 invoices with the same identifier, one sent to clients, one sent from the fake email. Someone was trying to create confusion, then step in as the solution. The cracks almost swallowed me. Clients delayed payments. One canceled a rental, saying they didn't want drama. My suspension at work extended because the complaint triggered an audit. I watched my income shrink while Simone kept spending. She posted photos at Buckhead restaurants, clinking glasses, no captions, just proof. She wasn't hiding. She was trying to hurt me. And every time I felt rage rise, I remembered Angela's rule, right like a judge is reading. The anonymous complaint at my job contained details only an insider would know: project codes, dates, a vendor nickname. Calvin asked if Reggie ever walked my sites. He had. Reggie dropped off coffee and wandered like he belonged. Calvin filed requests through Discovery. The complaint was submitted from a personal email, but traced to a device that connected to my home Wi-Fi. Simone's home. Simone's network. My stomach turned because the sabotage wasn't just personal. It was professional. They were starving me, so I'd sign away my life. When Reggie finally answered my call, his voice sounded like someone pretending. "Bro, I don't know what's going on with y'all," he said. I didn't argue. I asked one question. "Did you file that complaint?" Silence. Then he sighed like he was tired of me. "Marcus, you were moving funny," he said. "Simone said you were hiding money." I was looking out. Looking out. He said betrayal like it was loyalty. I asked if he'd been in my house at night. He laughed. "Man, stop," he said, and hung up. Simone's next move was refinancing the house. I didn't know until a loan officer called asking why I wanted to pull equity. I told him I didn't. He paused and said an application was submitted with pay stubs, IDs, signatures. One signature was mine, but wrong in the way forgery is wrong. Too careful, too smooth. I asked where the upload came from. The email used was Simone's. The officer apologized and said the application was flagged for fraud review. Angela filed an emergency motion to stop any attempt to encumber the property and requested sanctions. Simone responded by claiming she was forced to secure resources because I was withholding marital funds. She kept using the same tone, calm entitlement. Then she emailed my employer's HR department, using her HR skills like a knife, saying they were negligent if they let me access job sites while a protective order existed. She attached the order, but left out the judge's narrowing language. She made me look like a liability. Losing my job felt like drowning quietly. In the HR office, my manager looked embarrassed, like he didn't want to be part of the story. They said the risk was too high, city contracts couldn't carry controversy, and they had to protect the company. They slid a separation agreement across the desk. I wanted to scream I was being framed, but companies don't fight for men like me when headlines are possible. I signed for my final check and walked out with my hard hat in my hand, carrying my livelihood like a dead animal. Simone texted me within an hour. "Told you," she wrote. "Now you'll do what I say." The cruelty of that timing made my chest ache. She knew. She orchestrated it. I didn't respond. I went back to my motel and stared at my reflection until I didn't recognize myself. Beard untrimmed, eyes red, face hollow. I looked like somebody surviving, not living. I told myself, don't die inside her story. Build yours. I moved from the motel to a short-term rental in Decatur and paid with what was left of my savings. The first night, I slept on the floor because the mattress felt too soft, like I didn't deserve comfort. Calvin kept digging. He traced the account Simone transferred my business money into. It was tied to a new LLC, Langston Growth Partners. Victor's company. The address was a UPS store in Sandy Springs. That detail made me laugh once, bitter, because it proved how unserious their wealth really was. Angela explained what mattered. Simone wasn't just angry. She was committing acts courts hate: impersonation, interference with business, forgery attempts, misleading filings. The law isn't a morality play, Angela said. It's a structure, and she's leaning her whole body against the wrong wall. She prepared discovery requests that forced Simone to produce communications, transfers, device logs. Simone complied like rules were suggestions, giving partial answers, missing months, pretending ignorance. One discovery drop cracked everything open. Text between Simone and Tasha. They weren't emotional. They were strategic. Simone wrote, "If the order hits, he can't come back." Tasha replied, "Make sure he can't work either." Simone wrote, "I want the house and the tools. He's not walking away with anything." Tasha replied, "And if he fights?" Simone answered, "Then we say he's dangerous." They always believe that. I read those lines and felt nausea. Not because they were clever, but because they were casual. Simone texted Victor too. She called him V. She wrote, "Once it's final, you're good. We'll use the equity." Victor replied, "Make it clean. Clean, like my life was laundry." There were texts to Reggie as well, short and transactional. Simone, "Do what we discussed." Reggie, "Need the first payment." Payment. So my friendship had a price tag. I stared at that screenshot until my eyes burned. The betrayal didn't feel dramatic. It felt administrative. Simone still thought her advantage was the house. She posted flowers in the living room like she was flourishing. But behind the scenes, her refinance was dead, and Victor was impatient. Victor didn't want Simone. He wanted leverage. His tone shifted. "You said this would be easy," he wrote. Simone replied, "It will be once he signs." Victor wrote, "Then make him." The way they talked about me, like a door that needed to be kicked in, made something harden inside me. The connected twist came from my father's trust, something Simone never bothered to understand. The trust restricted transfer or encumbrance without trustee consent. I was the trustee. Simone could live there as my spouse, but she couldn't mortgage it on her own. Her refinance attempt wasn't just fraud. It was impossible. Angela prepared a motion explaining it clearly to the court, with signatures and dates in plain language. The judge read it and frowned. Not because he cared about my feelings, but because he could see a party trying to game the system. The hearing that changed everything happened on a rainy Monday. Simone walked in irritated, not scared. Tasha sat behind her, tapping her phone like a court was an inconvenience. Angela presented the forged refinance documents, the bank's fraud letter, device logs showing upload from Simone's laptop, and a text from Simone saying, "I'll sign his name if I have to." Simone's lawyer tried to call it marital necessity. The judge looked at Simone and asked, "Did you sign his name?" Simone stared back and said, "I did what I had to do." The judge's voice stayed calm as he dissolved the protective order. He said there wasn't sufficient evidence of danger, and there was substantial evidence of misuse. He narrowed the case to property and fraud and issued a new order. Simone must cease occupancy pending property determination because she attempted to encumber an asset without authority. In plain terms, she had to leave. Simone's face didn't crumble. It hardened. She leaned toward her lawyer and whispered like she was plotting the next knife. The karma didn't come with cheering. It came with a deputy and a clipboard. 3 days later, Angela met me at the house with a court officer. Simone refused to pack. Aaliyah stood behind her with wet eyes, not for me, but for the inconvenience. Simone said, "This is my home." The officer read the order again. Simone laughed sharply. "So he's really doing this," she said, pointing at me. "You're weak. You couldn't handle me." Her voice didn't shake with regret. It shook with rage that she couldn't control the room anymore. I didn't argue. I watched Simone pack fast and careless, grabbing what she wanted. Jewelry, bags, electronics. She tried to take my father's photo off the wall. The officer stopped her. "Not listed," he said. Simone rolled her eyes. "It's just a picture," she said. "He can buy another." That sentence told me everything about her. When she finally walked out, she didn't apologize. She didn't look back. She snapped at Aaliyah to hurry like I was the one slowing her down. The house felt wrong afterward, too quiet, too haunted. I walked room to room and saw evidence of my absence. Drawers emptied, a dent in the wall where something had been thrown, missing tools in the garage like missing teeth. I didn't collapse. I called Calvin and gave him the list again. Calvin said, "We'll trace the sales." Because yes, Simone sold them. She wasn't just cruel. She was methodical. Calvin found listing photos online, Facebook Marketplace posts with my generator in the background of my own driveway, cropped but recognizable. The seller name, Tasha B. Pickup location, a gas station in College Park. Calvin arranged a controlled purchase. No dramatic sting, just documentation. When Tasha arrived to sell my laser level, she bragged casually about cleaning out a man's junk. Calvin recorded serial numbers, saved messages, and walked away with evidence that felt like a weight in my pocket. Simone doubled down. She filed a motion accusing me of harassment for investigating her family. She demanded sanctions. She applied for new credit cards using my information again, like she couldn't accept that the consequences were real. One bank froze the account and filed a suspicious activity report. Simone texted me, "You're ruining my life." It wasn't an apology. It was to blame. I stared at the words and thought, "You ruined yours. I'm just not letting you ruin mine too." Victor pulled away the moment Simone lost the house. His interest evaporated like smoke. He stopped showing up, stopped texting. Simone sent messages begging him to call. He replied once, "Handle your situation." That was it. Simone still didn't show remorse. She aimed her anger at me, as if my survival was a personal attack. Aaliyah posted vague quotes on social media about toxic men and mothers who sacrifice. I saw it through a mutual friend and felt that familiar sting, being painted as the villain so nobody has to feel guilty. The court ordered Simone to produce a full accounting of money transferred from my business. She submitted a spreadsheet with missing months and rounded numbers, fake neatness. Angela hired a forensic accountant, Denise Harper, who rebuilt the trail from bank records, payments to Victor, cash withdrawals, deposits to Reggie labeled consulting. Denise's report was clean and ugly. It It showed Simone's scheme wasn't just emotional warfare. It was a coordinated theft. Reggie got subpoenaed. He showed up for deposition in a cheap suit and tired eyes. He tried to act like we were still boys. "Marcus, you know I wouldn't do you like that," he said. Angela slid the text where he asked Simone for payment. Reggie's face twitched. He blamed Simone. He blamed Victor. He blamed me for being secretive. He did not apologize. He tried to reduce his role like it was a math problem. Angela asked if he submitted the anonymous complaint at my job. Reggie said he may have sent concerns. The connected twist was simple and ugly. Reggie had debt. Gambling, mostly. He needed cash fast. Simone offered him money if he helped isolate me. Get me suspended, desperate, willing to sign. Reggie agreed because betrayal is easier when you tell yourself the victim deserved it. After deposition, Reggie walked past me and muttered, "This is too much." Too much for him to face consequences. Not too much for me to live through. The next hearing focused on temporary support and property. Simone demanded spousal support. She claimed she was financially harmed by my withholding. Angela presented Denise's report and bank fraud letters. The judge asked Simone why she kept applying for credit under my name after warnings. Simone answered, cold and certain, "Because we're married. It's mine." The judge paused, then said something that hit like a door slamming. Marriage is not a license to commit fraud. Then came the fine print that destroyed her plan. Angela introduced the prenup clause Simone laughed at. If either party attempts to seize a separate property through misrepresentation or concealment, they waive spousal support and reimburse legal fees. Simone's lawyer argued it was unfair. Angela showed Simone signed voluntarily, had time to review, and her actions triggered the clause exactly. The judge didn't lecture. He enforced it. He ordered Simone to pay a portion of my legal fees. He denied her spousal support request pending final resolution. Simone's eyes narrowed, not fear, disbelief, like she thought reality was negotiable. Outside the courthouse, she stepped close and hissed, "You think you're safe? I could still take you down." Her hands shook, but her voice wasn't remorseful. It was hate. She didn't say sorry. She said, "You took what I deserve." That's when I understood Simone didn't love me and didn't hate me. She saw me as a resource that stopped cooperating. But Simone wasn't done. Her next twist was to try to poison my family. She called my mother, who lived outside Baltimore, and told her I was abusive and unstable. My mother panicked because she's from the generation that thinks peace is a duty. She called me crying, asking what I did. My throat burned. I told her the truth. My mother said, "Marcus, why would she say that?" I answered, "Because it works." That silence on the line was heavy. My mother didn't apologize for doubting me. She just sounded scared, like she finally realized I was in a fight I didn't choose. Simone tried the same with my cousins, my church connections, anyone who might shame me into surrender. People stopped calling. Group chats went quiet. I learned a hard truth. When your name gets stained, even your friends want to stay clean. It wasn't malice from them. It was self-preservation. Still hurt. Still lonely. I stayed quiet and let the paperwork speak. Every time I wanted to defend myself loudly, I remembered Angela, right for the judge. Meanwhile, my career was still damaged. Even with proof of the false complaint, my old company didn't want me back. They weren't evil. They were afraid. City contracts don't like drama. I started taking contract work, short-term project management gigs in Cobb County, then a longer one in Charlotte. I drove up I-85 every week like my life was a suitcase. It was exhausting, but it kept me moving. Movement kept me alive. Calvin traced more tool sales. Some are pawned. Some are sold in cash meetups. The court issued a judgment against Simone and Tasha for the value of the equipment. They acted offended, like being held accountable was harassment. Tasha rolled her eyes in court and muttered about bias. The judge didn't react. He just signed the order. Paper doesn't care about your attitude. Paper follows you into apartments, car notes, job applications. Paper makes your future expensive. Reggie's karma was quieter but real. Banks flagged him after Denise's report showed transfers labeled consulting. His account got closed. A lender froze a personal loan application. A business credit card got denied. He tried to start a new venture, and couldn't get a line of credit. He called me once from an unknown number. His voice was small. "Can we talk like men?" he asked. I didn't respond. I wasn't interested in closure from someone who sold me for quick cash. Simone's karma hit in layers. Her lawyer withdrew when she couldn't pay the retainer. She tried to hire a new one and got quoted fees she couldn't touch. Victor stopped answering her messages because she was no longer useful. The lifestyle she posted wasn't supported by anything but denial. She applied for a nicer apartment in Sandy Springs and got denied. She applied for a car note and got a rate that felt like punishment. She blamed me for every closed door. Still no remorse. Just anger that her plan didn't work. The final order came months later. The judge confirmed the trust structure for the property, ruled the home was not a marital asset Simone could seize, and affirmed that Simone's attempted encumbrance and misrepresentations triggered the prenup clause. Simone didn't get the house, didn't get my pre-marriage business. I didn't get my retirement. She left with what she actually earned minus what she stole, plus the fees she owed. The judge said one sentence I'll never forget. The court will not reward deception. Simone stared at the bench like she wanted to argue with gravity. My one didn't feel like victory. It felt like breathing after being underwater too long. I got the house back legally, but I couldn't sleep there at first. The rooms held echoes. I hired cleaners, replaced locks, installed cameras with backups in 3 places. I sat in the living room with the lights off and listened to nothing. Peace felt unfamiliar, like a language I forgot. I realized I didn't want to keep living inside the memory of being forced out. So I sold the house quietly. Not because Simone wanted, because I didn't want furniture that remembered my worst days. I bought a modest duplex in Charlotte under the trust. 2 units, stable cash flow, nothing flashy. I rebuilt my equipment rentals slowly with strict controls, separate devices, 2-factor authentication, a bookkeeper, contracts that required verified payments. No more casual access. No more leaving laptops open. No more trusting people with keys to my life because they kissed me goodnight. The hardest loss remained Aaliyah. The court didn't make her talk to me. She was old enough to choose, and she chose Simone's version. I wrote letters I never sent. I didn't want to pressure her. I wanted her to learn the truth without me begging. Some nights I thought about that word, harassing, and wondered how love becomes harassment when it's inconvenient. I learned to grieve quietly. Not because I didn't care, because I had to survive. The last time Simone reached out, it was from a new number. The message was short. "You did all this to me." No apology. No accountability. Just blame. I forwarded it to Angela for the record and blocked it. I didn't feel triumph. I felt clarity. Simone would rather drown in her own narrative than admit she chose cruelty. And I finally understood I didn't need her remorse to be free. Now my life looks smaller from the outside, but it feels bigger inside. I wake up early, drink coffee, review schedules, and go to work without carrying fear like a second phone in my pocket. Some nights I sit on my back steps in Charlotte and listen to the quiet. No speeches, no viral moment, no victory lap. Just a locked door, a bank account that moves only when I move it, and the steady knowledge that the fine print didn't save me because it was magic. It saved me because I stopped ignoring reality and started building my life like it mattered. If this ending satisfies you, subscribe, because the next story is even colder. Drop one word in the comments. Freedom, if you think Marcus handled this the right way. And check the pinned comment. I'm linking the full playlist of stories where karma shows up with paperwork. Comment freedom, white heavy check mark, pinned playlist down arrow the end.